Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Blue Ribbon Lounge
Welcome
podcast.
back to the lounge for our 4-year extravaganza.
Yeah, we've been killing it over these 4 years.
Yes, murdering for years.
Yeah, it's not alive anymore.
No, it's
The downloads keep going down.
yeah, driving this right into the ground.
I blame it on myself. All these audio technical difficulties. But hey, today was so much easier for some reason. I don't know how.
Yeah,
It's beautiful weather outside. The clouds opened up.
birds are
Uh,
singing, the sun is shining.
Yeah, Lady Gaia decided to shine down on us, and we got our number one fan and one of the beautiful women of the Blue Ribbon Lounge podcast here on the. There's more meaning to that, but here to celebrate with us, like we do. You know what? When we're not having beautiful ladies on, we're eating hot ass chicken wings for our for our yearly
Yeah, yearly
episodes.
episodes.
It's gonna get spicy either way, everybody.
Right.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes. Number one
Hi
fan.
guys,
Damn.
How are you doing, Cam?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
About as good to be expected.
It's a great day outside, having a good weekend. Great Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah.
Time
Uh,
traveling beauties.
did Davey tell you that he came up to Torquefest?
No.
Him and the old lady got out of
Oh
town
yeah, we
and came
actually
all
went out for a night on the town in Dubuque.
yeah around all sorts of people, not in the middle of the woods,
Yeah,
not hunting for Sasquatch.
it's crazy. It was
But there might be a couple of Sasquatches there, if you know what I mean.
Sasquatch looking folks. Yes.
Motherfucker.
Yeah. Which reminds me, we have to give a shout out to Corey.
Corey, hey, thanks so much, and Sarah, his beautiful wife. Thanks so much for listening. It was so nice to he has told me I think before that he listens.
Yeah.
It was nice for you to get to meet a listener live in nature.
Yeah, it's very awkward to meet somebody who listens to the podcast out in the real world and be like, hi.
Yeah, it's funny because I think he was like, it's like meeting a celebrity.
Yeah.
And then when he walked away, I was telling Dave, I was like, actually, it's like meeting Sasquatch. Like,
Yeah, it's rare.
he's our number two listener right after Cam.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, you're the one who does it. I was talking to the old lady. I'm like, that's kind of awkward because like I don't know what to say. Am I supposed to like put on a show or something?
Yeah, Dance Monkey.
Yeah, but then we were watching the band and Heavy Metal Dettel, who we've had on before. There was a kid right in front of him with his cell phone, like recording him play, and I'm like, well, that's probably more awkward than what I just went through because he's got like somebody with a camera, all like, I'm a fan. Let me videotape you. Like, at least the guy just shook my hand and was like, hey, I listen. Like,
Yeah, we got cameras on right now, so we can see Cam's lovely face. She can see the dirty ass basement right now. But yeah, I don't like posting video. That's too much
no,
work, I
it's
think.
too much. Yeah, you'd
Yeah.
have to like do makeup and
Yeah.
hair and
Yeah, makeup and hair.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, you look good rolling out of bed. And it must be in the jeans because Cam's looking good over there. She looks like she's got a portal to another world behind her with that window.
That's
With
the
my
upside
window, yeah.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was trying to fix the curtains and stuff, and it's like, nah, this part ain't gonna be recorded. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And how has your new into spring been going, Cam? You been doing anything weird lately, or maybe
I
any
mean,
out
like,
and abouts?
no, we don't go anywhere. We
Amen.
really don't. No, but I planted my garden and I planted a whole bunch of new flowers in my bed and, just making
Garden
it
bed,
pretty.
right? Not
Yeah.
you're not sharing the bed with a bunch of dirt.
Some plants, some tulips.
Well, you're supposed to get dirty every once in a while, but no, I definitely don't want dirt in my bed.
Oh, that's great. And then I actually went to a burlesque show locally last night, so
Ooh.
I am slow moving today. I didn't tie one on or nothing.
Yeah.
Just being out late, and that's
Right.
not usual for me anymore. But it was a great show. Kitty and Red review. They had like people from out of town. There was all sorts of great dancers locally and from out of town. It was such a really good time. It's always fun to go out there and see all your friends, kind of like when I go to Torquefest.
Yeah,
Like
you run into all your
yeah.
compadres. Yeah. It's cool to get out there.
It sure is.
Yes. So, what we were talking about today is true crime. Is that correct? Everybody got that memo?
Oh, I was doing another
Yeah.
Sasquatch
Oh, another
episode.
Sasquatch.
No, no, no. Yeah, so I kind of looked up. Well, I pulled a Davy, and I hope you didn't do this too. But I got a couple of definitions and stuff.
Oh,
According to the FBI, a serial killer is someone who commits three or more murders in separate events, usually driven by psychological motives. These killings are often permitted with cooling off periods between, and they range from days to years.
yeah.
And that distinguishes serial killers from like mass murderers who kill everybody in one go,
Yeah.
and then spree killers who just commit a bunch of murders at one time,
Yeah,
like in
all
a
real
row.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like serial killing would be like uh he always takes their ring finger or something, and it's
Oh,
always the same
yeah.
MO and the same kind of thing. Uh Mass murder is obviously like a shooter or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And then spree killing, I'm just kind of reiterating what you said.
Hey, that's
Like
all right.
it's like say you're robbing a gas station and something goes bad, you end up shooting the person and you're like, oh shoot. So then you just go and start shooting everybody, shoot a guy and get his
Oh
car,
no, this
run
guy.
into a police
Yeah,
officer, shoot that guy, and you're just like ping ponging back and forth to different murders
just
until you get caught.
just like really stacking up the bad decisions.
Yeah. Like getting flushed down a toilet. Like once you get to that spiral, you're like, well, shit, I guess I should do everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to make it clear that, and I don't know, I don't listen to a lot of true crime. The wife does, but I think it's important that I think a lot of this true crime wave of entertainment, I think is a lot of times there to um, entertain and like learn about, as opposed to like sensationalize it.
Well, a true crime is a genre of
Oh,
nonfiction
look at you.
in which the author examines a crime, usually detailing the actions of the people associated with and affected by the crime, as well as diving into the like perpetrator's motives. I can't read mine right.
It looks like it was written by Zodiac.
Yeah, and it deals mostly with true crime deals mostly with violent crimes, murder, and serial killers, like John Benet Ramsey or
Mm.
O.J. Simpson or uh who's that one that everybody thinks is hot?
Ted
The
Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Oh,
Yeah, and true crime can be done in a journalistic style where they just give out the facts of the case.
just the facts.
Yeah. Or it can be done more in like a narrative fashion where the person writing it kind of like downplays one fact or focuses on a certain thing to fit the kind of story that they're trying to tell. And kind of like in a speculative narrative. And that actually is why a lot of people kind of talk bad about true crime, is because it can be like sensationalizing the bad guy or the killer as opposed to like respecting the victims, because yeah, a lot of times they'll like focus on one aspect of the case and be like, oh well, he always drank milk, so he was lactose intolerant, and that's why he killed. And they're like, well, that was just a little piece. You just wanted to make it a bigger thing because that you wanted to have the lactose intolerant killer,
Mm.
but really he was like, I don't know, the nail in my foot killer or something. But a lot of this genre started back in 1950 or the 1550s
Whoa.
when literacy and was on the rise. Like people were becoming more literate,
Hmm.
and the ways in which they could print out like pamphlets, and they call them clap books, but they're just like when you fold paper over to
Oh,
make a
okay.
book. And a lot of those were like really cheap, and they,
2-page book.
yeah, and they could pass them out really quick. And a lot of, yeah, like murder and crime, that was big news, and it's really
Hmm.
easy to like look at a newspaper and then just reformat that into like a pamphlet or an easy to read like little booklet.
Mhm. So the news has kind of always been like a if it bleeds it leads type thing.
Yeah,
It's just like we can see it more now, and maybe it's a little bit more sensationalized, but that sounds like it's always kind of been a key component to the media.
yeah. And in 1807, Henry Tufts published the first biography of a criminal, but he was mostly like a horse thief, a burglar, a counterfeiter, a con man, and an all-around scoundrel.
Scoundrel.
Yeah, his book was a narrative of the life, adventures, travels, and suffering of Henry Tufts, and it was yeah the first biography of a criminal.
Okay.
You know, like when they write their death row confessions
Yeah.
or write different books. A lot of books I've read about true crime are people that like later find Jesus
Mm,
in prison and then write about their deeds, being more ashamed about it,
mm.
kind of thing. Like a
Probably the right way to go.
yeah. Well, it's like one of those steps. I don't want to step on any toes, but where like part of it is like apologizing or
Oh
like
yeah,
you
like
know,
like they do that in the 12 steps, like making amends,
yeah,
and which is like very rooted in Christian belief.
yeah, and some like killers or criminals will write books in order to
Mm,
like show their perspective and like not justify it, but make amends for
yeah,
what they
at
did.
least like being honest about it.
Yeah. And then in 1827, Thomas De Quincey wrote an article called Murder Considered as One of the Fine Arts. Yeah, and it was a trilogy of essays that was more satirical and didn't really focus on any like murders or true crimes, but actually focused on how the public perceived like murders and crimes and how it became he was pretty much like so over the true crime genre
Mm.
in 1827 that he was like, you guys are glorifying this and you're making it into like, you know, a big
In
spectacle.
1827.
Yeah, and he was already like so over
Yeah.
like you guys' fascination with death and murder.
Well, I guess entertainment is cyclical. And that kind of goes back to if you've ever heard of Dan Carlin, Hardcore History.
Oh, yes.
Uh, he has an episode called Painful Tainment,
Okay.
and it talks about like everywhere from like the Roman Colosseum to like guillotine beheadings. Um, and at the time, they didn't have TV or video games or even radio.
Yeah.
The only music, you didn't have records. The only music was people playing it live. And so when there was something that was going on, everyone would go see it. Like, and it just kind of happened to revolve around violence.
Right. Because they do like public executions.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've seen like paintings or depictions of like a hanging where there are people like in the foreground or in the background that have like, they're like they have a picnic going
Oh
on.
shit.
So they're just on the side of the hill, like waiting for this guy to be hung, just
Yeah.
having a little lunch picnic.
Yeah. I mean, when you got well, and I feel like I've seen some depictions like that. Maybe not like with the picnic, but
Yeah.
of like very crowded, French streets.
Yeah.
Like everybody is just cramming in to get a look at this beheading or hanging or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something about our human nature, it seems, that draws us to that.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
but back in the day when somebody was beheaded or hanged, it was usually because they were a truly horrible person. So like
Hmm.
everybody was celebrating this person's no longer going to be with us to do the things that they did.
Yeah, I could see that, especially for like a king or something like that
oh
has
yeah.
really abused his power for years, and like everybody is now in poverty because of it, and now everybody definitely wants to see that guy get his head cut off
Yeah.
because they haven't
Yeah.
eaten a loaf of bread or a slice of meat in forever.
Right. There was a guy, Edmund Pearson, who wrote books and articles called Studies in Murder. And he wrote for magazines like The New Yorker and Vanity Fair. And this was 1924. And he did this for at least like, they said like 30 years, like 3 decades. And in 1964, when an anthology of Pearson's works were all put together, the forward actually contained one of the earlier mentions of the word true crime as a genre of books, or like yeah, I guess it would be a genre of books or a subject. I'm trying to think like how a library is separated. Be like nonfiction, true crime.
Oh
you know,
yeah, I can. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I think
like a category maybe.
yeah, something like that
Yeah.
category. Yeah.
And then in 1965, Capote wrote In Cold Blood about the 1959 Cutler family murders, in which established the kind of modern way or modern novelization of crime. like for the genre, and it also proved to be very profitable. So it was also when everybody started jumping on that we can write books about nonfiction crimes, and it's going to be a big selling point.
Cool.
Yeah,
It's interesting that that is now hitting a new cycle with because kind of you made it sound like um books and easy print really met up with people being able to more broadly read.
yeah,
And now we're getting into we have been in a era of more people can afford dumbass podcasting equipment and say whatever they want on the
yeah,
air,
right,
and versus people are willing to go out to easy places to find them and listen to them.
yeah,
And not to say that there aren't some good, but it's, I mean, I think we went into this kind of being like everybody's kind of doing it, and
yeah,
it's an easy way to kind of do some entertainment and hang out with a couple of friends
yeah,
and
and get Cam on the Zoom and
yeah. But yeah, I really see that juxtaposition of those. How about you, Cam? What did you kind of look up? Or do you
I
are you a true crime fiend?
I am.
Okay,
I am.
what do you listen to or watch or what?
Um, so I love Bailey Sarian on YouTube. But she's more of a I'm going to tell you about the murderer and what they did. And it's between 30 to an hour and a half each time. And then there's also Stephanie Harlow, but she makes the victims
Mm,
like her main focus.
okay.
And the thing that I love about her is she will talk to the victims' families
Oh
before she
wow,
even does anything and like basically get their blessing
that's
and
great.
learn more about the person. So she'll focus on that rather than who the murderer or sexual assaulter or whatever. So I really, really like that about her. And then she's also got another one called Crime Weekly with Derek Levasseur. And I listen to that on Spotify.
Okay, I have to
okay,
check some of those out. Pass them on to the wife. She likes that kind of stuff. She really likes to listen to True Crime Garage.
yeah,
That's a couple of guys, and they have a very great way of telling it. They have good voices. They kind of go back and forth really good. um, and then a lot of people I hear into this My Favorite Murder. It's a pretty big podcast.
yeah. I
I haven't
guess
heard of either one of those.
Oh, really? You have to
Yeah.
check them out.
have you heard of that chapter?
Yes, I love him.
Yeah, that's the one I listen to mostly. He's like an Irish fellow.
Yeah, he's from Ireland.
Yeah, and he does a lot of true crimes, but he also like does the odd ones because like even doing research for this when I was trying to find like an interesting true crime to bring with me, a lot of them I've heard before, and then some of them it's like, well, here's the interrogation, and I'm like, well, none of this is like actually interesting. It's just yeah, there was a crime committed, but like there's no twist or like a hook or like some kind of mystery. It's just like, oh, this guy killed his wife and tried to blame it on the dog, but his receipt for his milk got him caught.
Oh,
And it's like, oh, okay, well that's over.
Yeah.
that's the second time you brought up milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're the milk
Oh,
murderer.
yeah, the lactose
Yeah,
killer.
lactose killer. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Cam.
Oh no, I was done. I was
Do you
done.
ever watch
Oh,
any of those makeup girls? I see a
Well,
lot
yeah,
of that.
Bailey Sarian is one of those. She does Murder Mystery and Makeup Monday.
Oh, okay. Because I know, like, I think I don't have TikTok, but I do get the Facebook Reels and stuff. Some of
Hmm.
that, I feel like the makeup or like the true crime people, somehow that became famous through like TikTok or the shorter ones where they're just like doing their makeup while they're talking about some lady getting decapitated in her car.
Oh, I don't know. I've been watching Bailey Sarian since like 2018 on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's where I found her. Um, during the whole Chris Watts thing, because I was really invested in that. Because, dude, like, just divorce your wife. You didn't have to kill her and your kids. Um, so
amen.
yes, right. So that's when I found her, and that's when I found Stephanie. Um, and started watching them. I like Bailey because she's fun, even though it's all about the murders or whatever. But like she'll call him out. She'll be like, dude, get better idols. Don't
Yeah.
idolize Bundy and all those people. And then, like I said, with Stephanie, she does such a deep dive into everything. And she starts like from the beginning, like this person was born here and she was raised by her parents. And, like these were her dreams and aspirations. And unfortunately, this person walked into their life and this happened. And so I really like that because she humanizes the victims rather than the perpetrators.
Yeah, glorifying the killer.
Right.
Yeah, and this is a reminder to everybody out there listening. The Blue Ribbon Launch podcast is kind of a surface level podcast. It kind of gets you, names and ideas and concepts that if you find interesting, go check out yourself. Feel free to correct us on anything, like, only ever having one woman on the Blue Ribbon Launch podcast. That was in fact factually incorrect. And number one fan Cam was gracious enough to remind me otherwise. And I mean, we're not trying to give you everything here, but just something new maybe.
Yeah, well, like we've said before, this is like your springboard or a stepping stone.
Yeah.
But I also feel like we'll give you enough facts that if you were in a bar room argument, you could whip out some facts from the Blue Ribbon Lounge to prove your point.
Yeah. And so what was it that you were taking a look at, Cam?
Well, I did two. I did a short one and then I did a long one that everybody kind of knows about. The short one is actually from the 1700s.
Oh, snap.
And they believe this woman killed over 600 people. And while I don't condone murder, I actually really like this woman. Her name was Juliana Tafana, and and back then, like when they used facial cleanser and makeup, they would use arsenic and hold on, and like lead and belladonna, because you could like do eye drops and it would make your eyes like really dilated, and apparently that was like a huge thing back then. And it would also
That's kind of like a thing now where the girls do the big eye like anime makeup kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But this would like make your pupils dilated, so basically you're putting poison in your eyes to dilate your pupils, because I
Oh,
guess
I'm like, could you see? You'd
Right.
be walking around like blind.
so, and everything else would just really make you pale, so like your eyes would really pop, and I guess that was like the thing. But back in the 1700s, like 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls are basically being sold to like these old men, like, here, yeah, marry my daughter because she's of breeding age.
Yeah.
And
here's your one chance.
right.
Yeah.
So, and more times than not, they would end up in abusive relationships where they would be sexually assaulted by their husbands, broken bones, all kinds of stuff. So she created Aqua Tofana, that she would sell along with her makeup and beauty products to women, so that they could kill her abusive husbands.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like guised as a makeup product or something.
Right.
Oh.
Right. And like back then they didn't have anything, a woman just couldn't go out and divorce her husband. She had to wait for him to die.
Mhm.
And if they did murder their husband, like stab them or whatever, they would go to jail. Their life would be gone too.
Yeah.
And it was all word of mouth. Like, she didn't advertise it. It was all word of mouth.
Oh, so it's like going to Bob Marley's and asking for the extra crispy.
Right.
Yeah.
But then she wouldn't take somebody's word. Like, if like, Matt, I don't know your wife's name, so I'm just gonna call her Joe, or
Yeah.
Jane.
That's my son's name, so that's kind of weird.
That is kind of weird.
So if Jane walked into my store and was like, "Hey, Sarah told me about your stuff," I would get information, and then I would go talk to Sarah and find out information about Jane, and then maybe do a little recon to make sure she's actually having the things done to her that she says she's doing, before she would even give her the poison.
Yeah, because there is that other side that maybe the guy is just really rich, and the lady just doesn't want to be with him. She wants to be with the stable boy down the street.
Right.
So wow, that's really looking out for both parties over here.
Yeah. So, but she did, it was like 50 years. She was around for, 50 years. She did this for 50 years. And the poison, so there's one drop in a liquid for 4 days. And it would just kind of make them sick the first couple of days, like they had the flu. And then the third day, they'd start getting really bad. And then they'd get their affairs in order. And on the fourth day, they would end up dying after the fourth dose. So back then, it just presented as like heart failure or stroke or something that people normally died of, you know?
Yeah.
And
Or
it
even
wasn't
even
what?
back then, it would seem like if the doctor didn't know, then it would still just be natural causes because they're like, he died. He
Yeah,
got sick and died.
Well, I don't
right.
see any knives protruding from him, so probably natural causes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then she got caught because some lady got her stuff and she went to poison her husband and then had a change of heart and like was like, no, don't eat that soup. And then of course, he's like, why not? And she's like, oh, I just, there's something wrong with it.
I spilled my
Um,
makeup in it.
right. So he went and once there's speculation that he beat the truth out of her because she didn't want to give up
Should have killed
Giuliani.
him. Should have killed him.
Yeah. So he went to the cops and she caught wind that they were coming to arrest her. And she went to a nunnery or a convent. And they were hiding her until the town started. There was a rumor saying that she actually was poisoning the whole town through the water system in the well.
Oh no, someone's
Um,
poisoned the
Water
watering
hole.
hole.
yeah. So the nuns gave her up and they ended up hanging her.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hey, that was interesting that lady one. What was her name again?
Juliana Tafana.
Juliana Tafana. Because, like, according to the FBI as well, most serial killers are men, and I saw everywhere from like 60 to 90%. I bet like an 80% sounds about right. Um, and 20% of serial murders are committed by women. And like I said, I've seen numbers kind of all over the place. That was kind of a conservative average. Um, and that being taken place so far in the past, there is certainly that golden age of serial killers of like the 70s to the 80s that we think of. And it's probably because that is the current time.
Yeah.
That's what our newspapers go back to and stuff like that.
And it's easy to find media on it, like books or
Yeah.
movies or
Or people alive
pictures.
that remember it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if that lady would be considered a serial killer if she was just that's like being like
oh,
an arms dealer that
yeah,
sells guns to
okay.
people that shoot people.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together.
I mean, because her crime, I get that she helped people kill people, but unless it's illegal to have poison or to sell poison,
I
maybe
mean,
she
it
just
could
got
have been.
hung for no reason.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell them to put it in their food or
Yeah.
drink. Um, but yeah, I guess you're right
Yeah, no,
about
she
that.
yeah,
Go
she
ahead.
was just the enabler.
Yeah,
Yeah. Enabler. I like that word.
that's.
It's a
I
good
guess true
word.
true crime is broader than I was considering
Yeah.
when looking this stuff up.
Well, because even it is kind of broad because the one story that I had was in Paris in 1922, since we're going back, and it was the village of Goas la Ludu near Cataaluen in the Brest district. But there was this little girl named Pauline Picard who went missing from her family farm,
Mhm.
and they like this was more like a would you call it like a missing 411, I guess? Have you heard that
I've heard that term.
terminology?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where she went missing and they searched all over for her and they couldn't find her. And then so the authorities were like, ah, she probably a wild boar probably got her.
Damn.
Yeah. And then of course the rumors were maybe that the Roma, or as they called them back
Oh
then,
yeah, yeah.
gypsies, like stole her away. Um, but yeah, any searches didn't find anything. They didn't really have any leads. They thought one of the farmhands might have done it because he'd been convicted for sexual assault before,
Mm.
but he was sent in the completely opposite direction, like 7 miles to a different town the day that she went missing.
Oh, okay.
So they kind of ruled him out. Um, but then um, a child matching Pauline's description was found wandering in a town called Cherbourg, which was 400 kilometers away. And the family, they got a picture, and the mom's like, "That's my daughter." And so they traveled by train to go and get her. And when they got there, they immediately were like, "Yeah, that's our daughter." But the girl didn't recognize them or know who the people were, and she was mute, like she wouldn't talk. And it seemed like she didn't recognize the language they were using because she was kind of taught English as well as French. And they're like, well, she's not lingual at all. But there's the physician, or whoever that had the kid, because she was 2 years old, was like, well, why don't you spend another couple days with her to see if she is your daughter? And because at first the parents had some like concerns that maybe it wasn't their daughter, even though she looked just like her. But then after spending a couple of days with her, the father went to the news and was like, "Yeah, this is our kid." And the cop that escorted them back was even skeptical about it until when they got to the town, the neighbors and people came out and they're like, "It's her. She's home. This is awesome." And there was even a guy named Yves Martin. I don't know, Yves. And he was a 49-year-old farmer that lived like on the farm next door. And when he heard all the rumors that the kid had been found and came back, he's like, well, I got to go check it out.
That's weird because I murdered her.
Right. Well, it said when he sees the girl, he freaks out and he's like, starts being like, oh God, oh, I'm so terrible. Oh, woe is me. And just runs away and ends up committing himself into a mental institution. Like, just like freaks out because, like, yeah, the dead live kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh no. But so they had the girl for a month, and this other farmer a mile up the road, or a bicyclist was like a mile up the road, and then found a body in a ditch. And it was of a little girl, and their clothes were folded neatly next to them, and the clothes were the same clothes described by the parents as the
Mm,
ones Polly were wearing when she disappeared.
damn.
Yeah. But the thing with that is the body was missing its hands and feet and was decapitated.
Oof.
And then I've heard two different things that um they couldn't officially identify it as Polly because the face had been eaten by foxes.
Oh.
But then I've also heard that the decapitated head that was in the ravine or whatever was actually of a male,
Mm.
like an adult male. And so then they're like, well, maybe there's two victims, or like,
They
what's going on
they just
here?
pick this head up and they're like, nah, this is a guy, and they just like toss
Just
it
tossed it
back.
down.
No, no further questions needed.
Yeah, but then they kind of figured that no, this is really Polly. Somehow they figured that out because they didn't have DNA and stuff back there. But I think probably birthmarks and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so then they end up shipping the other girl back to where she came from because they're like they didn't figure out who she was. She just looked a lot like their daughter, and she just ended up in this town wandering around. So they sent her back to the town, and then she stayed with like the nunnery or whatever, the orphanage, for 2 years until she got measles.
Damn.
But then yeah, the body they found one stab wound, and besides the fact she was missing her hands and feet and had one stab wound, and the doctors were like, well, we can't say that it was a violent act that caused this death. We're just going to say it's exposure.
Yeah, that's like some kind of situation where like a guy, you know, beats the shit out of his wife so much, and then she ends up killing herself or something, and it's like, well, it's not the guy's fault she took her life. He didn't kill her.
Yeah.
But it's like, come on.
Yeah, but I don't know. They're like, oh, she died of exposure. But okay, so her hands and feet, and she's decapitated from being outside too long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I thought that was an odd one. And
But
actually, when I
I
was,
feel like that kind of thing still happens though. Like, well, and you know, I say this because like this is obviously an extreme case, but like, uh innocent until proven guilty, or like having enough evidence and stuff like that, or if you don't if you can't convince a jury, then like these things aren't inherently legally true. But
Right. Well, that's like a lot of true crimes that you watch. They use the term I just had it, circumstantial evidence,
yeah, yeah.
which is like we have this theory and it kind of lines up, but we have no proof of this theory. Like, yeah, someone said they saw him at the McDonald's parking lot, which is 2 blocks away from this murder happened, and we caught his car at that intersection, but that's all we really have to go on. Like, that's just
Mhm.
circumstantial. Then
Yeah.
yet, it's a really burden to try to get the jury to be like, just for these two things, he's actually, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah, there's actually a case right now in Idaho um, where a man is accused of killing 4 college students. And really, the only thing that they have that ties him to the scene is somehow his DNA ended up underneath one of the murder victims.
Like underneath their body or in their
Yes,
fingernails.
underneath their body.
Oh,
Mm.
okay.
Yeah, so it was well, David, you know what a K-bar is.
Yeah, it's a knife.
Right. So the sheath of a K-bar was underneath the victim's, like underneath her body.
Yeah.
And then they just found some of his DNA on the snap.
Okay.
And then they have kind of pieced it to where like his cell phone was turned off. Like during that time, a car that matched his car's description was seen in the area, like the 3 months leading up to the death. Like he was stalking these people on Instagram. And he's also, and the defense is like, well, but he's autistic and he can't do that. But he's currently in a PhD program for criminology.
Oh, yeah.
And he wrote a paper on how to commit the perfect crime.
Right.
So in that case, there is a lot of what you would say circumstantial evidence. And I'm like, yeah, everything that I've watched does kind of make it look like he's guilty because he's smart enough to do all of this. But they only have that one little piece, and they've got to prove that that knife sheath actually belonged to him.
Right.
It's like paragraph 1 on how to commit the perfect crime. Don't write a paper about committing
Right.
crime.
Yeah. I That's kind of funny because I just heard a story about a serial arsonist
Ooh.
who was
In
actually
California.
what?
In
Oh,
California.
yeah, the Frito Bandito
Oh, okay.
because he was lighting Fritos on fire.
Oh, geez. Are they like hella flammable?
Chips are hella
Damn,
flammable.
I put that shit in my body.
Yeah, when I go camping, I always bring a little fun pack of chips so I can light the fires with it.
Damn, that's funny.
They'll burn
Does it
forever.
smell good or bad?
It smells like burnt oil.
Okay. I mean,
I mean, it's a
that's not too bad.
but yeah, he was setting these fires and he got caught because he wrote a book because he was the fire investigator who was trying to catch the serial arsonist, but he was actually the serial arsonist.
That sounds like a fiction right there. That sounds like
Yeah.
some sort of sci-fi adventure.
And then he wrote a fictional book that he said was based on the case that he was researching, but then the stuff that he put in the book was too detailed and they're like, how do you know all this stuff? I mean, they're like, well, you're the investigator, but then they're like, nah, it's a
No.
little too similar to what happened. So he pretty much ratted himself out.
He's like, neither of you probably watch Rick and Morty, right?
I do. He doesn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's the episode where they have the night people, where they fall asleep and then they wake up and do chores
Yes.
and shit. And he's like falling asleep a detective and then waking up like this arsonist.
Yeah,
That sounds like a crazy movie.
that would be a crazy movie.
Yeah. I actually haven't finished that episode, but it sounds like they actually didn't put in how they actually figured out it was him. It wasn't because of the book. He was going like to another town, and when he would come back, like fires would end up erupting on the side. And they
Yeah.
were like, this is weird. What is going on here? So they started like looking to see when he was going out of town to these meetings. And that's how, and then somebody followed him and watched him throw it out the window. And that's how they caught him.
Throwing out bags of Fritos.
Bags of Fritos,
That's-
flaming bags of Fritos. Yeah.
Well,
That's
no,
a
he
great
would
band
say,
name.
Yeah.
He wasn't a smoker, but he would light a cigarette and then put 3 matches and then like the yellow legal pad paper
Damn.
and then rubber band it together. So when the
That's
cigarette burned down, it would hit the matches and it would light on fire.
that's some fucking Drano and aluminum foil bullshit right there.
Yeah,
Like-
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably got that out of the anarchist cookbook or
yeah,
something.
right. Yeah. That's too funny. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, like these people are smart, and that's I think the scary thing. I mean, yes,
Well,
there are
I
some
think
stupid criminals out there,
yeah.
but like the ones that get away with it for decades, those are the ones that scare me the worst.
Right. And I think you know, well, going back to a little of my bullshit here. According to the FBI, serial murderers, and now we're talking about kind of off and on topic here, but are make up like less than 1% of all homicides in the US. Though there's like roughly 15,000 to 20,000 homicides per year. That's like about 150 serial murders committed by an estimated 25 to 50 active serial killers at a given time. Currently, like in the golden age, there was like 250 in the between the 70s and 80s. There was off and on about 250 to 300 serial killers active.
Yeah.
But now it's more like 25 to 50. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think the numbers don't really shine the light onto kind of what you're saying, like how smart they are or like how gruesome they can kill people or torture.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that perception of like, boy, I don't want to get eaten by an alligator, even though only like 2 people a year get eaten by an alligator. You
Yeah.
know, like, and those numbers aren't, I didn't look those up, but
But when you do put it into those kind of numbers, you can also see why the true crime genre is so big because there's a well to pull from.
yeah, I mean, consider it, there's 6 billion people on Earth. There's like 800 million people in the US, and you're talking about like 25 to 300 people.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a lot, but like I mean, to write a book a year or something,
Yeah.
you know, you couldn't get through all the people.
Right.
Yeah. For what it is, there's a lot.
Yeah. And I think now it would probably be harder. Not that I've been in the mindset of a serial killer, but we did do an episode about serial killers. But it seems like with everybody having a camera and everything being so connected, and with like red light cameras and just ring doorbells, it'd be really hard to sneak into somebody's house and kill him without somebody catching you somewhere on video camera.
Yeah, I stopped doing petty crimes because of that kind of things. As opposed, I mean, wouldn't even go so far as to murder somebody. Experts do point to advances in like forensic science,
Yeah.
DNA with the, this K-bar sheath, and better policing. How they can get places faster, or they know not to fuck up a crime scene and
Yeah.
stuff like that. As well as cultural shifts between, less hitchhiking, less prostitution, more cautious parenting. These have all caused a rapid decline in having more killers. And also, the concept of using these tools, essentially between the 90s and the 2010s, to catch more people.
Yeah.
And that turns more of the kind of, line towers off.
Right. Well, and also, yeah, just more communication and being connected, like the internet and having more resources you can use. Because back in the day, the reason there was a lot of serial killers in like New England or California is because the counties were so close together and not as like sprawling as they are. Like in Iowa, Scott County is huge.
Yeah.
But like in Los Angeles, like Los Angeles County, and then there's Orange County, and then there's this county. And so if you're a serial killer and you're just driving a mile over here and killing somebody a mile over here, you're in different counties, and those sheriff departments necessarily weren't sharing information with each other about what was going on.
Yeah, because that would have been like you would have had to write up a form and then fax it over if you were even gonna do that, even if or if you even thought that it was a serial killer or
Yeah, if
something.
that case happened to just sound similar enough to the one that you're doing that you'd want to get information. But then also you send the letter and it goes to his secretary and they're like, "Hey, chief," and he's like, "We're too busy trying to figure out this murder. What do I care? Guy in bumfuck county is wants, you know." So
Yeah, that's why the Golden State Killer was so hard to catch because he was in different counties and nobody was like, "Oh, let's, do anything," until later. I think it was like 10 years later, somebody was like, "Oh, let's look at these cold cases," and finally realized that some of these were the same, but they still didn't have the big picture.
yeah,
Um, and fun fact about the Golden State Killer,
Fun
um,
fact.
Patton Oswald's wife
Mm.
was deep into that and helped do a lot of research once it went to the cold case. And
You-
she actually had a hand in helping the detectives piece out, like figure out who that killer was. But a sad fact is that book ruined her life and she ended up dying because of it.
Oh,
Laney.
Yeah.
because of the book, I thought she had like cancer.
No, it's believed that she was just so run down that she took medicine, and then I don't know if she forgot she took the medicine and then
Mm,
took more and laid down and went to sleep, and she never woke up.
damn.
And I hate the fact that I can't remember her name right now
The
because
Golden
Patton
State
Oswalt.
Killer got one
Pat,
last victim.
Patton
Yeah.
Odwell. I don't know her name. I just know her as Laney from Dream a Little Dream.
I don't know that.
You don't know that movie?
Is is she was
Got
she Lady?
yeah,
No way. I love that movie.
yeah. Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, Dream a Little Dream. It's about uh the black haired Feldman or Corey like running into an old guy and switching souls with him.
Jason Robarbs.
Jason Robarbs.
Yeah.
Michelle McNamara.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we do some research here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. There was a documentary on HBO about it that I watched, and that was interesting because
I'll
I
have to
didn't
check that out.
realize.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's called Gone. I'll be gone in the dark. Something like that. But she was also writing a book about it, which is how she got in touch with all of the detectives. And her book actually wasn't even published until after she had passed away.
Yeah, so wherever you're listening to this podcast, make sure you drop the name of that HBO series, or is it a documentary or a series or
It's I mean,
like a
both.
movie
I
or
think there's like 6 parts to the
oh, okay.
documentary.
Yeah, drop the name of that
Um,
below, and then also your HBO password and username because I'm gonna need to borrow that.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called I'll Be Gone in the Dark because that was the name of her book.
That makes
Yes,
sense.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark. So that's the name of the series and the name of her book.
All right,
So,
whatever. What other stuff we got, you two?
Yeah. You said you had one more?
yeah, mine is kind of long because this woman makes me mad. She makes me mad.
Davey, it is.
Oh.
He's got no more.
Well, I had a brief
um,
one.
do you want to go ahead with the brief one?
Well, I kind of had a brief one because there was for the longest time it was called the Lady of the Dunes, and up in Maine, there these kids stumbled upon a body that was in these dunes, like on the beach. Well, but back in like the shrubs, and she was like badly decayed, and like her head was halfway cut off, and her clothes were folded and placed under her head, and she had like these denim jeans and this blue scarf and like a white tank top. And the thing that became famous from this is because 100 miles south of that is where they were filming Jaws.
Hmm.
And in the movie Jaws, when they do the Fourth of July scene and all the people are flooding into town, there's a lady in the background with jeans, white tank top, and a blue scarf in her hair, or
Damn.
hair up in a blue scarf or bandana. And Stephen King's son, I think Joe Hill, was actually watching Jaws and noticed that and pointed it out, and then sent the detectives like, "Hey, this might help figure out who this Jane Doe is. She was in the movie Jaws as an extra."
Mm-hmm.
And it became like this cool kind of let's figure out this case. Like Stephen King's son's on the case too, and like the internet sleuthing.
Yeah.
But then it turned out that they finally dug up her body in 2020 or 2021 because they had nothing else going on, and
They
used
had nothing else going on.
and they were able to use DNA and then like 21andMe type stuff to at least
Mhm.
find out who maybe her relatives were
Yeah.
because they have the same GNA trigger things, whatever. And then they traced it back. There happened to be a lady that went missing from California, and they think that her husband did it because they were on vacation because he owned an antique store and they were traveling around doing like the pickers type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that he was like violent. And then a couple of his wives said he was like had these weird violent tendencies. And there was a couple of murders that also ended up with clothes folded underneath people's heads that were kind of in the same area as he was as he moved around the country. And they didn't really put two and two together until after he was dead because the case was cold and they didn't even know who the lady was until, you know, 2021. And this was back in the 70s, when they were filming Jaws, that she was found.
Crazy. And that makes me think of, I feel like I have heard of, oh, first of all, great shirt, Cam. We really
Oh yeah,
appreciate that.
I had to represent with the blue ribbon. I had to represent with the podcast shirt.
And I had to make sure that the people knew because it's not
Yeah,
gonna be video,
right.
uh but I feel like I have heard a lot of situations where and maybe I have heard like one situation multiple times or something of these podcasts and stuff, people listening to it and being like, hey, that sounds like this, and like solving hella cold cases because of these podcasts, these true crime podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's anything you guys had heard of.
Well, I think
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
oh no, I was just saying, I think there's a comedian that has a joke about that, like where he's like, I don't know if
I don't know.
I, okay,
It'll be fine. We got hella fuzz over
yeah,
here.
yeah, but the comedian is like, can you imagine being like, you commit like one or two crimes, like maybe you killed somebody, but you got away with it and you reformed and like you started a whole new life and now you're like the manager at Menards and you're about to retire and you just sent your grandkid to college and you're having your best life, but then all of a sudden the cops bust down your door for something you did 50 years ago because some
Damn.
fucking kid in his parents' basement with the power of Google, fucking tracks you down and sends you to jail for the rest of your life.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. There's a podcast called Detective Perspective, and he only does cold cases. To hope like to see if they can get people to if they remember anything, to help solve those cold cases.
To like keep them still fresh in people's memories, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And maybe, somebody was around 20 years ago and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember, Joe Blow was walking down the street at that time and then, all this stuff happened and I just completely forgot. Maybe they can give a little hint or a tip to the cops that weren't there before." So, but yeah, there was a I can't remember the name of the podcast that was listened to it like back in 2020, where they were talking about like rapists and murders that just it was a one-time thing. Like for whatever reason, they decided I'm going to go kill this person or I'm going to go rape this person. And then they got away with it. And then all of a sudden, yeah, like 20, 30 years later, cops are knocking on their door going, "Hey, do you remember where you were on, June 9th, 1972? You know,
Yeah.
you need to come with us. We need to have a little talk." So
Right.
yeah, and it's crazy how DNA can solve these crimes nowadays.
Yeah. And not even that, because I've seen some stuff where like someone will put it on like Reddit or 4chan or one of those like extra nerdy kind of form. Well, like
You're not wrong. You're not
yeah,
wrong.
and then the people will do their like Google foo and like look at, oh, this was a blue Toyota. How many blue Toyotas were sold in 1972 in this town? And then get a list of the people and then kind of go through and eliminate the people for where they were at the time. And then all of a sudden, like, have you ever seen the documentary? I think it's called like Don't Fuck with Cats.
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like a real time of how the internet sleuths work their magic and find people.
Okay.
Yeah, there was this mental guy who was putting videos on the internet of him like torturing kittens.
Oh, I have heard about this. I haven't seen the documentary.
Yeah, and then the people were able to use the stuff in the background and like zoom in on things and just tear it apart and then able to piece together that he was like in Canada and like where his
Yeah.
apartment kind of is by using like Street View and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they were able to track him down.
Just like really putting your low level autism to work
Yeah,
for good.
Yeah.
For
good.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they tracked him, I think, to the UK.
Oh, he's the
I think is where he fled to the UK. And then I think that's where they picked him up and extradited him back to Canada.
oh, okay.
Because he ended up killing somebody.
Oh yeah, he
Um,
did because he was like progressively getting worse with his torturing of cats.
Ugh.
That it eventually happened that he did it to a person.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like the things that he was doing to these cats just was next level. Absolutely next level. And I learned so much from true crime that I wish that I didn't, terminology that I wish I didn't know
Oh,
what it
yeah.
was. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. However, I've also learned that it's never a mannequin. If you come across something out in the wild and you think it's a mannequin, it's never a mannequin. Call the cops.
Well, yeah, because like bodies look different after they've been
Yeah.
killed. I mean, even when they try to make them look natural in
Yeah.
like a visitation or whatever, but so like something sitting out in the woods or whatever for
Yeah.
a period of time is gonna look less human.
yeah,
Right. And never go to a second location ever. Don't ever
Yeah.
let somebody take you to a second location.
yeah. That also goes along with if you're doing after hours with a bunch of hippies, and then they want to go to a second location. Never go to the second location. It always ends bad.
And you said you had another a long one. You got a tale for us?
I do. This one, okay, there's so much. There's like 10 and a half pages that I written down.
Okay.
So, and this one started in 2019 and it's actually still going. Like
Oh, okay.
her trials are still going on because this is another one of those people that should have just left her husband and gave her kids to somebody who really wanted them. So have you heard about the cult mom?
No.
No. So her name is Lori Daybell. And there's a lot. So we got to go back to like way back in the day. So with her third husband, she had two kids, Tylee and Colby. And then she divorced him and met her fourth husband, Charles, and they got married in 2006. And then they were a loving family. And in 2014, they adopted Charles's nephew, JJ, because his cousin couldn't, or yes, his cousin couldn't take care of JJ. There was like drug issues and whatever. And his sister, Kay, could not, like, she couldn't give him what he needed because there were issues from being born addicted to drugs. And then it also turned out JJ had autism. Okay. So then 4 years after that, her third husband, who was Joe Ryan, he died from a heart attack. But there's speculation that the heart attack was induced by Lori's brother, Alex, because they were like going around and they were roughing him up and accusing him of being inappropriate with his daughter, Tylee.
Oof.
Right. So like all of the stress and everything. And he wasn't like a fit person, but he wasn't like an obese, overweight, I could drop dead at any time person. He was just like a normal
No, he
person.
wasn't on 600-pound life.
Right. So, after he dies, Colby is already over 18, so he doesn't get anything and he's moved out of the house. But Tylee is still young enough. She starts getting Social Security, which was about $1,200 or $12,000, $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
2,000 for everybody keeping
Yep,
up.
that's a good chunk
Yes.
of change.
Right. And I'm like, that's crazy, for survivor benefits for, because your dad died. So then in 2018, Lori meets this guy, Chad. And
It's always a Chad.
yes. And like pretty much from the first day they meet, they start having an affair. And
You shouldn't do that.
no, you should not. So shortly after they do that, they actually start planning the murder of her husband, Charles.
Damn. It's like their second date on their affair, and they're like, how are we gonna fucking kill this guy?
Yeah.
Right. And the sad thing is like Charles loved Lori so much. Like he bent over backwards for her. Her kids were his kids. Like there was never, well, they're your kids. You have to take care of them. No, it's like, I'm going to work. I'm making the money. I'm going to support your kids. We adopted this kid together. Life is great.
Yeah.
And because JJ had autism, at one point they had moved to Arizona because they found out there was a really good school for autistic children in Arizona. So they moved to Arizona for JJ. And Charles worked in insurance, and for some reason he needed to go and move back to Texas where they were originally from. So they all moved back to Texas, and then Lori just like disappears. Like she's still having this affair with Chad. And she disappears.
From
For like
Chad
almost
or from Charles?
from Charles.
Okay.
She just leaves. She leaves both of her kids. She leaves her husband and just goes to Hawaii because
Oh shit, Hawaii.
yes, because she needs to. Okay, and this is like
Mental
just
health vacation.
Yeah.
right.
It's a
But the
lot of work
whole
to have a huge affair and a bunch of
Yeah.
kids.
right. So the whole time she's still carrying on this affair with Charles or with Chad. But she's telling Charles like I'm unhappy. But at the same time also saying like I love you, like pushing him away, but then pulling him back and playing him really good. But how do you just up and leave your kids for like 6 weeks?
Probably
Like I have a ton of kids and I know that there are sometimes that I just want to like shut my door and go in my room, but like I could never walk away from my kids.
well, I think that plays to the mental health role of
Yeah.
or
like the sociopathness
yes,
of the
yes.
person.
Yes.
Because certainly you wouldn't want to. Most normal people who wouldn't leave their kids alone, and maybe not alone, but they wouldn't like be away from their kids just all of a sudden. Also, wouldn't kill a person or plan to kill a person.
Right.
Right. So the whole time they're trying to figure out like how do we kill him? And they're deep in like the LDS church, like the Church of Latter-day Saints and like the
Mormons.
Mormons
Oh,
and stuff.
Mormons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. There were
Um,
Mormons.
I wonder if there's Amish serial killers or anything like that.
Oh.
I do know that there was an Amish child killed, but I don't know if there's been an Amish serial killer or murder.
Okay.
Because they normally try to do that like within their own community.
Maybe for a different episode. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Maybe. So yeah, so they're talking about how Charles is possessed by a demon and he's actually dead. And the person walking around in his body is called Ned.
Okay.
Damn.
This is the autistic kid.
No, this is the husband.
Oh, the
Charles.
husband.
Yes.
Yes, Charles is dead.
He's a
in
demon.
quotes,
Yeah.
and he's now a demon named Ned.
Ned.
Right. So at one point in January of 2019, Lori starts spouting all of this stuff off to Charles. And so he actually calls the cops and is like, I'm worried. Like, I just got back into town. My wife has gone off the deep end. I really need you to like come and do a mental health check on her. So they show up, and like if you want to look into it, there's actually body cam footage from all of this.
Mm.
And the cops are like, okay, well, we'll take her in and like we'll question her. And she's actually very intelligent because she told them like everything they needed to hear, and they just like let her go. They didn't even 24-hour hold her. Like
Now,
nothing.
I do think that there is something to be said about a difference between intelligence and manipulative, you
Yes.
know, because
Yeah.
like you can have some pretty dumb people pull one over on you. Um,
Right.
but at the same time, I guess talking to police as well. So I think maybe there's a big, thick, gray, blurry line as opposed to a fine line. But
Right.
Well,
I think that's an interesting contrast sometimes.
I do think that she's very manipulative, especially as I get deeper in, you'll understand why. But I think that there has to be some intelligence, even though she seems really stupid. There's got to be some intelligence for her to do the things that she did. Um, and the only reason I believe she got caught is because people cared about her kids.
Mm, God
Oh,
damn them.
Right? So, yeah, so like she does all of this. Charles is like, I'm not cool with that. Calls the cops and like, we need to do a mental health thing. She talks her way out of it. Um, and then she decides, okay, I don't want to live with you anymore because at some point she had gone back to Texas. So she goes back to Arizona with JJ and Tylee. And
okay.
she's got her brother Alex involved in this. Like he comes along with her. So there's a lot of people involved in this story, but
Yep.
I'm only going to deal with like as few
10
as
or
I
15.
Yeah.
right. So, but because Charles wants what's best for JJ, he's literally paying for everything. Lori doesn't have to work. So not only is he taking care of his house in Texas, he rented her a house in Arizona. He's taking care of all of her bills. He's sending her money. He's paying for JJ's school, all of this. So, okay. All right. So now we're going to enter into Melanie, her niece. Okay. And we're going to call her Melanie B because there's another Melanie that'll show up later.
This is just
So, yes. So, Melanie B. Um, so they're talking about like all this religious stuff and how, Lori's husband Charles is a demon. And so, like, she brings her brother Alex into this group with Chad, and then she brings her niece Lori and her niece Melanie B into it. And then there's also a Melanie G, but she's in it, but she doesn't really show up until later. So Melanie B's husband, Brandon, is like, I don't know, this is kind of sketch. Your aunt's gone off the deep end. Maybe you should back away from her. And Lori finds out that Brandon says this to Melanie B. And she's like, maybe you don't need to be with him anymore. So Brandon ends up being like, nah, I'm out, and divorces Melanie B. But Melanie B is still like manipulating Brandon because everybody loves Charles. Charles is a great guy. There's literally nothing that Charles
I
has ever
like Charles.
right.
right. He's literally never done anything. He's accepted everybody in Lori's weird ass family, like no questions asked.
But they still think that he's a demon.
No, just her brother and her niece. And
Okay.
there's Melanie G and like three other girls that we're not even going to talk about because they're not really relevant.
Yeah,
So like
Dave, we're
there's
not
this
talking about them.
I guess not. But
so
are they
there's
living
this
in like a commune at this time or in the same house or kind of like the cultish kind of stuff popping up?
okay, so Chad lives in Idaho.
Charles lives
Um
in Texas.
Charles lives in Texas. Alex and Lori do not live in the same house, but they live in Chandler, Arizona. And then Melanie B lives nearby, and Melanie G also lives in Arizona.
Okay.
And then these other women, I think some of them live in Arizona, but I know one of them lives across the country, like somewhere in the New England states.
All right. So they all get together on Discord and have this weird religious cult that they
Right.
think.
Or they meet at it's called Preparing of the People. So like there's
Ooh.
these conventions that they get together at.
Cult conventions.
Or like Mormon conventions.
Right. It's Mormon conventions.
Same
Same
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, all right. So all of this is happening through 2019. So then we get to um, July 10th of 2019. And Lori knows that Charles is coming to visit JJ because he hasn't seen him for a bit. He wants to come and spend time with him. And because Lori's still spouting off all of this, everybody's a demon, and people who aren't demons are zombies. Like bad people that like she just pisses her off. They're zombies. They haven't quite made it to demons yet. They're zombies.
Yeah.
So
You're on the list, but you're not
right.
all the way there.
So Charles is talking to her other brother, Adam, because he's also worried about Lori, but also his brother, Alex. So Charles and Adam decide they're going to go to Arizona together. They're going to confront Lori and get it on tape, all of this weird stuff that she's talking about.
Right.
And then take it to her church elder so that she can get her church privileges revoked. Because if you get your church privileges revoked, like you can't come to temple and stuff, and you can't participate in stuff.
They
So basically, like,
excommunicate you.
right. Well, somehow somebody found out. So Adam was supposed to stay with Alex on the night of July 10th. So Charles comes in. He's got his own place to stay. He's got a hotel booked. He gets his car. He goes to the hotel, texts Lori, hey, I'm in town. I'm going to be there at like 8:30 to pick JJ up from school the next day. Adam gets into town. Alex is supposed to pick him up from the airport. Alex just ghosts him. Can't find him anywhere. Like he's not returning phone calls, text messages, nothing. So Adam ends up staying with his family in Arizona. Okay, so the morning of July 11th, Charles gets to Lori's house. He texts Adam and says, hey, Alex is at Lori's house. And Adam goes, well, that's probably why Alex wasn't texting me back and has ghosted me. Be careful. They're probably planning on doing something. And Charles is like, no, it's fine. I'll be okay. All right. So here's where the first murder happens.
Spoiler alert, he wasn't okay.
Right. So he goes into the house. He gets JJ, puts JJ in his car, realizes I don't have my phone. Goes back into the car or goes back into the house. At this point, supposedly, only Lori is awake. Lori refuses to give Chad his phone because she's creeping through it. Well, she's cheating on him, so what's it matter if Chad's talking to or Charles is talking to somebody else, right?
Right.
Well, she's creeping through his phone.
But
And
only
Lori,
she can cheat.
right. So Lori won't give back his phone and is like making him chase her around the house. But he's never once put his hands on her. He's just like, Lori, give me my phone. I need it so I can get to JJ's school. Apparently, this causes a ruckus, which gets Ty Lee out of her room with a baseball bat. Now, it's important at this point to note that Charles is a semi-professional baseball player in the minor leagues.
Okay.
Supposedly, Ty Lee swings at Charles. Charles takes the bat from Ty Lee. Her brother Alex then comes out of the room, goes to rush Charles. Charles hits him in the head with a bat. But Alex is still able to go in his room, grab a gun, and shoot him twice.
So
Yeah, you'd think he'd fucking knock his head off.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so supposedly during the time that Alex went to get the gun, Lori and Ty Lee leave the house. Lori puts Ty Lee in the car with JJ, goes back in the house. She hears one shot go off. She goes back to the car, and Lori and the two kids leave.
Okay.
Smart.
Right.
Get the kids out of there.
However, it takes Alex 40 minutes before he even calls 911.
So they're actually doing some
Kid-
crime scene cleanup or something.
Yeah. Also, you had to take some Tylenol for that pounding
Or maybe,
headache.
yeah.
Right. So 40 minutes. And in that 40 minutes that Lori leaves before Alex calls the cops, she takes them to Burger King because JJ's got to have his chicken fingers for breakfast, chicken fries or whatever.
Damn, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
They go to CVS because Tylee doesn't have any shoes, and then they go drop JJ off at school, and then they come back to the house, and they show up at the house just minutes after the police do.
So she didn't even call the cops. She just left
No.
and went and did some shopping.
Right. When the cops got to the house, like he called and he was like, "Hey, my name is Alex. I just shot my brother-in-law. It was self-defense." And so they're like, "All right, stay on the phone. Okay, the cops are there. Come out with your hands up." He does all this. He's got like a tiny scratch on the back of his head.
Not like a welt or anything.
No, just
Some
like
so-
a tiny scratch. But they noticed that, like, instead of him just holding the paper towel, like he's rubbing it to make it bleed.
or like
Like, and
more
you can
red
see,
and stuff.
right. And there's body cam of this. You can see him doing this. So yeah. So the suspicious thing for the cops was a woman, one of the women cops walked over to Lori and was like, "Hey, I need you to," oh, and they take Charles's vehicle too to drop off JJ. Like, she
Well,
doesn't
yeah, the
take,
kids were already in there.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
one of
right.
them was.
But she also has Charles's phone. This entire time she has Charles's phone.
Well, she wouldn't give it back.
Right. But she still has it. But you would think, I don't know. You want to leave the house, just throw him the phone. Whatever. Anyway,
that's what we like to call rational thinking.
Right.
This situation is irrational.
no, definitely no. Well, no, I think everything was planned. And spoiler alert, a jury has found her guilty of killing Charles
Hell
and
yeah.
conspiring with Alex. Okay, so a female cop goes over because they don't know that Lori knows that her husband is dead at this point. So she's trying to get Lori to exit the vehicle because she doesn't want to give the death notification in front of the child. You know,
Right. Yeah.
that's awfully nice of the officer. And so the officer's trying to get her out, and Lori's like, "I already know he's dead." Like, just tells that to the cop. And she's like, "What?" And Lori's
In
like,
front of
"Yeah,
the kids.
Yeah.
Damn.
yeah." Well, no, just Tylee,
Oh.
not JJ. JJ has been dropped off at school.
Oh, that's right. I
Yeah.
forgot.
Um,
After chicken strips for breakfast.
Yeah.
right. So the cop is like, "Well, how do you know?" And Lori's like, "I was here when it happened."
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so they get taken down to the station. Everybody is separated. They all say what they want to say, and then they're let go. But the cops always thought that there was something weird, especially when the next day, once they finish processing the crime scene and they've got all the information written down and they start investigating to see if it was really self-defense, as Alex has said, things just weren't adding up. Well, then hold on.
Page 2.
Right.
Hold on. Okay, so then 4 days after Charles dies, she calls the insurance company to say, "Hey, Charles is dead. I need to collect on the insurance," which, by the way, was $2 million.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, sorry, $1 million.
I still wouldn't kick it out of bed.
Right. So when the insurance lady asks her how he dies, she's like, well, I don't really know how to say this. He was shot. And the lady was like, "Well, was it self-inflicted? Was it murder? Was it an accident?" And she's like, "It was an accident." So she tells the insurance person it was an accident, even though her brother admitted to self-defense.
Right.
Then she finds out that she no longer is the beneficiary for his
Ooh,
life insurance policy.
twist.
Oh,
Yes.
Big twist.
Because back in March, when she just like dipped, he changed it to his sister.
Yeah, he's like, screw you, lady.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the incriminating thing with that is like she gets off the phone and she texts Chad, and Chad texts back, well, I wonder if he changed it after he had 2 bullets to the chest.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah. So, like, come on. Anyway, she also goes on to tell him during that text message chain, that's okay. JJ and I are still getting $4,000 from Social Security. So even before she went to Social Security, she knew how much she was going to get for her death benefit from Charles and what JJ would get for his death benefit for Charles. And then at the end
Well,
of
she knows
August,
that because her second husband died and the one kid was getting 2,000. So it only makes sense that if the third husband died, then they would also get the
fourth,
two
fourth
four,
husband.
fourth husband, then the her and the kid would also get 2,000, so then they would be getting 4,000. So it's not uncommon that she would know how much she was going to get because one of her kids was already getting death benefits from a previous father that died.
Right, but JJ is also autistic and no longer has that. So he could have also been getting disability, which would have meant more money. But either way, they just thought it was odd that
She knew the
she already
amount.
knew. Right.
I ain't saying she's a gold digger.
So then at the end of April, Lori, Alex, and the kids all moved to Idaho where Chad lives. So Lori lives in like a townhouse, Alex lives next door. Then on September 8th, Chad ups his wife Tammy's, because yes, Chad is also married, ups his wife life insurance to the max. And she has 2 policies that are now worth $430,000. The same day, Lori and Alex take the kids to Yellowstone National Park, and they believe this is the last day that Tylee is alive.
Okay.
So, yes, she has now killed her 4th husband, and she has now killed her 2nd child. Like, in like the second one she gave birth to.
Yes, not the second child she's killed.
Also, more than
Right.
likely had something to do with the third husband's death.
Right.
Yes.
So, when people start asking why Tylee isn't around, Lori is claiming that Tylee is going to school at BYU, which is Brigham Young University, a very large Mormon school,
Yes.
like college. So
That was a mistake. That is something easily fact checkable.
Right.
right. So, but then on September 9th, Alex's cell phone is pinging at Chad's house. And Chad is telling his wife that he had to shoot a raccoon, and that's why there's a fresh grave dug in their pet cemetery.
Okay.
They had a pet cemetery.
Yes. So they then enroll JJ in school. JJ goes to school for 3 weeks, and he's believed to be killed on the 23rd.
Jeez. So
Because
she's
that's right. That's the day she calls and says, I'm going to start homeschooling JJ, but nobody ever sees him again. So then on October 1st, Lori rents a storage unit, and this is important for later.
okay. There's layers to this.
Right. But
Like a cake.
Like an onion.
So, but it's important to know that on October 1st, she rents a storage unit. And then, like, I don't know, a week or so later, Melanie B also moves to where Lori and Alex and Chad are. Okay. Then,
Page 3.
the day after Melanie moves to Idaho, her ex-husband Brandon is shot at
Oof.
as he's pulling in his driveway. So he calls the cops, and the crazy thing is he is shot at by a person who is using the Jeep registered to Charles. But Charles has been dead for several months, so how can he be driving his Jeep?
Right.
Also on the same day, Lori uses Charles's Amazon account to buy wedding rings for her and Chad.
But isn't Chad already married?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Watch out,
So,
Chad's wife. You're
Yes.
next.
yeah. So on
She's coming for you.
October 9th, Tammy is shot at
That's the wife.
in her driveway. But nothing happens, and she thinks it's just kids shooting paintballs at her. But she puts it out on Facebook, and she calls the cops, and the cops come and take a statement. And then on the 19th of October, Tammy just dies in her sleep.
What a
right.
pleasant way to go through all
Yes.
this mess.
Right. So, but the coroner is not allowed to do an autopsy because her family refuses to there be an autopsy.
I thought you were going to say they reuse the bodies.
They refused the autopsy. So she had no reason not to suspect that it was a natural death because there was no, external signs of
follow-up.
Hey, we're Mormon.
Right.
We don't believe in it.
Right?
So then, not even a month later, on November 5th, Chad and Lori fly to Hawaii and get married. When they come back, Chad is telling people that Colby is remember her first son, is the only living child Lori has. And Lori is telling people that Tylee died 3 years prior.
Just out of the blue.
Right.
Well, you don't remember? I told you it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, you should have known that.
So from September 23rd until November 26th, Kay, Charles's sister, remember her?
Yeah.
She's been trying to get a hold of JJ because JJ is her grandchild and they always FaceTime and have time together. Well, Kay has not been able to get a hold of JJ. So she gets pissed because Lori's also not returning her phone calls or texts or anything. She calls the cops and is like, hey, I need to have a welfare check done on this kid. Like, I haven't heard from him, nothing. We need to figure out what's going on. So the police show up at Lori's house. Lori says, oh, JJ's with my friend Melanie G back in Arizona. Police show up at Melanie G's house and she's like, oh, he's with my other kid there at the movies. Well, the police are like, dude, this isn't cool. Obviously, they figure out none of that's true. They go back to Lori's house the next day to find out why Lori's lying, and Lori and Chad and Alex have bounced.
Yeah, they're gone. They're on the lam.
Right. So they fly back to Hawaii on December 1st. On December 6th, Melanie G decides, oh, I need to have a conscience, calls the police in Idaho and say, hey, I'm really sorry. I lied to you. Lori called me, asked me to lie to you about JJ being with me. I don't know why she asked me to lie to you, but he was never with me at all. Then
And the cops were like, that's cool. Thanks for telling us.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
yeah, right? Because honestly, through the whole thing, nothing has ever happened to Melanie G. Nothing at all. So then 5 days later, the sheriffs are like, something's not smelling right. They dig up Chad's wife and do an autopsy. But we don't find those results out until later. Then, surprise, surprise, the next day, her brother Alex dies.
Whose brother?
Lori's brother.
Lori's.
Alex,
Okay.
the one that killed Charles.
Yeah.
And they believe Lori got him to kill Tylee and JJ.
Okay. And now her enforcer's dead.
Yeah. No.
Right.
What will she do?
So, although they do believe that Alex died from natural causes, because they did like a whole autopsy on him and they couldn't find anything. And just a side note about his wife, she claims that just a couple of days before he died, he like broke down and was crying and was like, I think I did something wrong. I think they're going to make me their patsy, but wouldn't expound on anything other than that. Her name is Zulema. There's lots of police interrogation videos of her as well. Anyway, So then 8 days after that, the police finally put JJ and Tylee's name out there as missing and endangered kids. And that they think that them being missing is a link to Chad Daybell's wife's death. Then on the 30th, because Lori and Chad are dodging the police actually go on live TV and pretty much call them piece of shit parents. Like, where's your kids? Tell us what's going on. The police figure out that they're in Hawaii, and the FBI goes to, or no, sorry, the FBI goes to Chad's house in Idaho, seizes computers, phones, journals, documents, and medications, and all of that stuff is sent off for analysis. Sorry, on the 25th of January 25th of January is when they find out that Chad and Lori are in Hawaii. The police show up where they're at. They get served. You've got like 3 days to produce your kids or you're in trouble. Surprise, surprise. They don't produce the kids. On February 20th, Lori gets arrested and she's charged with 2 felony accounts. Also resisting, obstructing officers. So basically, she's in jail. She waives her right for extradition, and on March 5th, she's flown back to Idaho. Oh, sorry. I should probably tell you this is now 2020.
Oh, now some things are really getting thrown into the wrench.
Yeah.
Right.
This is where when the courtroom stuff, everybody's behind glass and has masks on.
Yes. So then the next day she's got her bond hearing. She can't pay his bond. She's got to stay in jail. Then months later, on June 6th, they do another search warrant for Chad's property. And they show up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And by 9 o'clock that day, they find human remains.
Oh, no.
Yes, they find Tylee. They can tell that it's her. Well, they're not sure that it's her because actually she was burned. They believe that Alex burned her and at some point gave up because the fire wasn't hot enough.
Right.
Because
That's a classic.
JJ was just wrapped and then buried. And it was absolutely horrible. Chad is on the phone with Lori the whole time. She's in jail. They're on the phone. That shit's recorded.
Yeah.
And he's on the phone sounding all panicked like they're digging near the burn pit. I don't know why. Seriously? Like, they tell you those calls are being recorded. Why are you incriminating yourself? Anyway.
Also, don't bury that shit next to the burn pit.
Yeah.
Right? So he freaks out. They get off the phone. He goes to leave the property, and the cops are like, no, dude, come on. So they arrest Chad. Right. So he also fails to make bail when he goes up for his bond hearing. So
he must not have gotten that insurance money yet.
Yeah, no shit. Like,
well, the only thing that they ever say about Chad's money with his wife is like how much it was worth, but not when he actually collected it.
Okay.
So,
I'd imagine that stuff takes a little while.
Right. But like, I didn't throw it in there, but Lori eventually moved like all of the money that Tylee and JJ were getting into her account. So when they finally figured out, okay, so on June 24th of 2021, now we're in they've been in jail and now this is a whole nother year. They are finally charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder. They're also charged federally with Social Security fraud, I don't remember.
Doge got him.
Yeah.
Doge got him.
Yeah, like a whole bunch of fraud when it comes to the money. And it's
Wire fraud.
also right. It's also the day that they announced, like the police announced, that because Tylee was so badly burned, they couldn't actually confirm the way that she died. So it's called an unspecified homicide, and that JJ and Tammy were suffocated to death. So then the month after that, Arizona finally charges Lori with the murder of Charles. So then fast forward to February 2nd of 2023.
Jeez Louise.
2 years later.
Really dragging their feet on this one.
Well, during that 2-year time, Lori was like, "Oh, I'm crazy and I can't help with my own defense." So she was actually sent to like a mental institution to like figure
Could have been there a
herself
little
out.
earlier, but
Yeah.
Right. She goes like 2 or 3 times, I think, for mental incompetence. And at the time, Lori and Chad's cases were together. But at that point, they finally on February 2nd of 2023, they finally sever the cases because Lori's like, "Oh, I'm competent now, so I want my trial to begin right now." And Chad's like, "I waive my speedy trial. I want more time." So Lori's trial actually begins on April 3rd of 2023. So remember, all of this has happened in 2019, like her
Yeah.
kids and everything. So then so her trial starts on April 3rd. On March 12th, Lori is found guilty of all charges, but she's not sentenced until July 31st, and she gets 3 life sentences.
Makes sense.
Yeah, right. So
I would have liked to have seen 4, but whatever.
Yeah, 3 works.
Well, hold on. That's now those 3 life sentences that she was charged for was just for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. And
yeah, where's Charles getting his?
Hold on.
Oh,
hold
okay,
on.
okay. Thank God.
So Chad's trial didn't even begin until April 1st of this year.
Okay.
Yeah. His went
of this year, our Lord 2025.
Oh, nope, sorry, 2024. My bad.
Okay.
2024.
Yeah, we're only halfway through this year.
Yeah. So his trial basically went on for 2 months. And then he was found guilty on May 30th of all charges. But I don't remember why, but the death penalty was taken off the table for Lori in Idaho because of something that the prosecution did wrong, which is why she received 3 life sentences. But Chad Daybell was sentenced to death for his for being found guilty, right, of killing his wife and Lori's 2 kids. So
I guess Charles was killed by Alex, who is now dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So then April 9th of this year.
Well, maybe hold on. So Alex was the one that got hit in the head with the baseball bat by the minor league baseball player
Charles.
Right.
Charles. Maybe he did hit him enough that put a blood clot in his brain. So later on, he died in his sleep. They thought it was natural causes. Actually, so he got dinged in the head by a baseball bat.
Okay,
good job, Charles.
I didn't really go into Alex's death, but Alex was actually found on the floor in the bathroom.
Okay. Questionable.
And the crazy thing about that is he was found by his wife Zulima's son, who didn't even know that they were married, because when he called 911, he told the cops that he found his mom's boyfriend unconscious on the floor. And the cops, before they got there, actually thought it was like drug related, like a drug overdose.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that about the blood clot, because that's what they say. Like a blood clot traveled to his heart and killed him.
Huh. See?
Damn, dude, you're good.
I'm a detective.
Fucking forensic motherfucker over here.
But if you look at the pictures of Alex's head, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
that what happened to the back of his head was a baseball bat.
Yeah.
There's
We're
just
also
no
we're
way.
time traveling in the wrong direction. We're
Right.
back in
Yeah, we're supposed to
2024.
start trying to
Okay,
investigate.
so
April 3rd, 2024.
April
2024.
9th of 2025.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, Lori starts her trial in Arizona for the death of Charles. And actually, it's quite funny because she was her own attorney. It was hilarious. It was pretty bad.
Is there a video of that on the internet?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. There was only 9 days of trial. She did not put on a defense. Like she was her own attorney, but she didn't like once the prosecution rested, she ended up resting.
Her defense was like, "I'm telling you, I didn't do it."
Yeah.
Right, pretty much. And one of the arguments was Tylee was a teenager and she and Charles fought all the time. I'm sorry. Anybody with a teenage anything, daughter, son, especially a daughter, knows how much grief you're going to get from that daughter.
Not mine.
I am now on my third teenage daughter.
Oof.
And this one's not as bad as the other two, but there are still times that I would really like to smack her in the face. But at least I don't get called bruh.
Wow.
So they found her guilty for conspiracy to murder, to kill Charles, and I don't remember. There were other things too, but I was just glad that she got convicted of killing Charles. And
Yeah.
she goes back to,
Justice for Charles.
right. She's supposed to go back to court in Arizona in early June. They haven't set the date for that quite yet, for the attempted murder of Brandon, her niece's ex-husband.
With the shots at the car.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how are you following all this? You have like a channel you go to? Are you doing your own research?
You have a big tack
Yes.
board with string and
Yeah.
thumbtacks.
Pinboard.
I do not have a tack board, but yes, I do my own research, and yes, I watch YouTubers and listen to like podcasts because I know that there's stuff that I'm gonna miss. And honestly, like this isn't even the half of it. Like I didn't actually go into like the whole cult thing that they were thinking.
And when did you get hooked on this? How long ago?
When in December of 2019, when JJ and Tylee went missing, and
You've been following this since 2019?
yeah.
Holy smokes!
Okay.
A real true believer over here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have kids, and it's just hard for me, like, when I see things about kids that have gone missing, like, I really want those kids to be found. So, especially, and this one really ticked me off the most because Nate Eaton from the Idaho News, like, is actually the one that found Charles and Lori in Idaho, or in Hawaii, and was shoving a news camera in their face every chance that he could get, asking her, Lori, where are your kids? Lori, where are your kids? Lori, where are your kids? And I honestly believe if it hadn't been for him, the police, they probably would have taken even longer
So you
to
kind of
find out.
spearheaded the whole thing.
Yeah, just him doing, investigative journalism.
Grassroots shit.
Yeah.
Hell
So-
yeah.
And for me, like, if you didn't have anything to do with the death of your kids, like, tell me where your kids are.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, tell me where your kids are.
Or
So-
yeah, even if you didn't have anything to do with the death of your kids, you would still be like, my kids are missing.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't just be like, oh, they're at prep school.
But we
Right.
already paid for these tickets, so
Right,
we
so
really
you have
had
to go.
use
Yeah.
them.
I know they're missing, but we're going to Hawaii.
Right. So like that's kind of why I got invested, because I was like, dude, like, where are your kids? Just tell us where your kids are. But they
Yeah.
refused to say anything. Occasionally we would get a no comment, but it was mostly like a smart little smirk into the camera from Lori, like, like, I know where they are, but I'm not going to tell you because it's none of your business. And the whole time, like, that her kids were missing and the police and everybody are looking for them, she's telling her family that, well, Charles, like, that Kay, Charles's sister, was trying to take JJ away from her. So like they were hidden and they didn't want Kay to know where JJ was so that she could take JJ away from her.
What a crazy story.
That is nuts.
It was so crazy.
I'm looking forward
also
to the 6-part docuseries on it. So
right.
Oh, there is.
there is already.
There is. Sins of Our Mother or Sins of My Mother is on Netflix. She's done a couple of interviews for Dateline. And her son, Colby Ryan, has a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And my heart goes out to him because he's got to live with all of this. Like his sister and his his brother are gone. He's married. He's got kids. He's never going to know any of that. They're never going to know his grandma, but because he didn't want anything to do with his mom. Like he tried to give his mom the benefit of the doubt, but the second,
as a kid,
the second they were found in Chad's backyard, he's like, I'm done. Like I'm
you
out.
have to be
right.
Yeah.
And such is life. Hopefully nobody out there has got to go through anything like that.
Right.
Jeez Louise. But also, if you have to, I guess, thanks for listening.
Right. If you yourself have experienced true crime, put it down in the comments below.
Yeah. Send us an email at blueribbonloungemoline@gmail.com. And that's been 4 years. That's the truth of it.
Murderous 4 years.
Yeah. Killing it again. Thanks so much for being on, Cam. It's always fun to hang around and chat with you.
Catch up once a year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So like next year for year 5, we'll have to do something like super. Maybe we can do another jokes.
Oh, yeah. What a joke. Good one, Cam.
That's funny.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah.
No, we got some more fun stuff coming up. Davey's got some plans that we're going to be doing soon.
Oh yeah. If you're in town next month, the last weekend, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we'll be at Planet Funk.
Wait, hey, we're gonna get censored here, Dave. You get demonetized.
At the the place down by the Radisson used to be.
By the Radisson in Rock Island?
Where they do Festival of Trees.
Oh, is that the Riverfront Center?
Yeah, the River Center.
The River Center, yeah.
In Davenport.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. Just check out Planet Funk Con on Facebook and hit us up in the Facebook group if you want to.
Yeah.
Thanks for time traveling with us, Cam. I know you're in a different time and place.
Yeah, she is in a different time zone.
Whoa, you're entering the zone. And thanks for time traveling with us, listeners. You got anything to say to the audience, Cam?
No, I just appreciate you guys having me on again. It's always fun.
As always.
Yeah, Cam, make sure you're good to yourself. All you listeners out there, be good to yourself. What do you got for him, Davey?
And remember, it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight that the dog got itself into.
That's it. Dave's got his serial killer notes.
A little more organized this time. They're like in paragraph form.
Paragraph form. Wrote an essay.
Yeah.
All right, ready? Ready, Cam?
Yeah.
Ready, Dave?
Yeah.
Aye, Captain.